Hey. Okay, so today's lecture is I gotta go so fast. I don't know if you guys have seen, are you guys, any of you on the slides yet? So the slides are under body image for class 12. We have so much to cover. Ladies, don't forget to sign in either when you leave or I just want to make sure you get credit for being here. Okay, before we start, I did. It should be in there. Anybody not have access? Okay, I don't know what the deal. Let me see here. This should say, let me hold on, share. Anyone with a link can see it. Done. So I just got on it. So again, go to discussions. Here's a link to, is it not say published? Okay, that's the problem. My bad. Sorry, guys. You should see it now. Okay, so homework assignment. You guys were awesome. I just want to reiterate with the assignments that we're doing. So many of you are here, you're trying to just make it by, you're trying to do the best you can. This class is easy. How many of you would agree with that? I'm holding my hand up. I'm making it easy. However, it should be making you think. It should be making you look at things differently. The goal in this class is not that you just academically understand this better, but that it's somewhat applicable to yourself. So the actual homework I'm doing is meant to open your freaking minds, right? To like, try this out. Try out the meditation. Some of you were amazing. Honest, you did it. I could tell you did it. You tried it. You were like, this one drove me bonkers, skin crawl. This one, oh my God, I was so surprised. This actually I'm going to do again. So it actually opened up for those of you who did all of them. It was a beneficial thing, right? You know, probably would never have done it on your own, right? So being in this class is kind of pushing that edge of certain things that you wouldn't naturally do or go to. And of course, there's verifiable research for why I would promote, mindfulness or meditation or cognitive behavioral therapy techniques, right? But it's important that with these assignments that you understand them. So I think half of you, maybe 2/3 of you really understood the cognitive distortion and the thought record, like the point of the recording of your thoughts, and that the intention was to look at your distortions, how you're perceiving reality in a maybe distorted way, and to question those distortions. There was a handful of you who went into it never thinking that your distortions were the problem, but that reality was the issue and you needed to deal with it better, which goes completely against the whole process. So I need to do a better job, right? So the key here for you is that you actually question yourself, because that's where improvement begins. It's not in making your environment more controlled. It's in improving your capacity to handle a lack of control. Because the truth of the matter is, you might think you're in control. Well, that's pretty godly of you. You're not in control. You're not. There's a huge reality occurring here that you only have a very small amount of give and take with. Right? So the goal here for you to at least expand is that you, one, admit that you don't know it all, and two, that you're willing to open your minds up to look at maybe yourselves in a different way, so that might change the way you look at reality differently. So for those of you who might not have felt that there was anything you got out of that decatastrophizing or the cognitive distortion, rethink where you might not be questioning your perceptions of reality. You think that it is absolutely true. And you're not necessarily going, is it true? Is it absolutely true? Could I be wrong? What if I am wrong? Then how would I deal? The other thing with hardship is this, and then we'll get into our new topic. hardship is hardship, suffering is suffering. So when we look at the view of going into a situation where it is hard, the death of a loved one, someone's house burns down, the dog dies in the fire, I was sexually assaulted, but I was really traumatized by religion. You know, when you look at these scenarios, your goal is to look at it differently. That's what we're looking to do. So if you're not going to look at it differently, well, and it's not to say, let me get back on track. It's not to say that those aren't hardships. We're not saying that it shouldn't be hard. We're saying, can you develop resilience out of it? Can you learn how to handle that hardship? It's not saying this isn't a catastrophe. It's okay, well, what if this catastrophe happens? Can you handle it? So you're really developing a sense of ability, capacity, and humility to be with the hardship rather than saying, this is a catastrophe, I can't handle it, it'll never be better than this, so screw it. So some of you had those responses, and which is understandable. But again, we're not saying these aren't hardships, or that my mother dying of brain cancer wasn't really difficult. They didn't bring me pain. But the reality is I developed a sense of ability to face it, to say goodbye to my mother, to see her life leave her body, to see the body without any soul in it. Like I did that. It didn't ruin me. It made me more connected to people, to people who are alive, to connected to my mother in a different way. So when you're looking at things from this poor me, woe me, life sucks, everything's bad, you're setting yourself up for depression, right? And you're setting yourself up to never really get past hardship, which keeps you in a fixed mindset versus a resilient or growing mindset. So I'm trying to help you set you up to have a growing mindset, not fixed, right? Fixed is survival mode, right? All or nothing. I'm right, you're wrong. Finding those black and white scenarios. I'm going to be controlling, which is a symptom of fight or flight. The goal here is that you can start being more resilient, more adaptable, more malleable to reality. And chances are right now, you don't really have a very clear or accurate understanding of what reality is. And what you're bringing to the table is kind of a juvenile, limited viewpoint. So did I. There's nothing wrong with that, right? So by opening yourself up to looking at these things, like I might not get into med school. My best friend has an addiction. My father's in jail. My sister was molested. When you look at these things from a broader scope, it actually can help you move forward in a more expansive life than a retracting and closing in life. We good? Okay, any questions about the homework that some of you might not have turned in yet. Some of you forgot. That's another thing. Make sure you read the homework where it spells it out. Attach this, then do the decatastrophizing. Some of you just didn't, if you read it thoroughly, and I can tell you might have read the first sentence or someone told you, go freaking read the assignment. And if you aren't sure, send me a message. I want you to do well. I want everybody in here to do well. So, which is why I give you all this lenience, which is probably not preparing you for reality, which is if you don't get it done, you look like shit. So I'm not making you look that way, right? I'm like, you're cool. We're good. Get it in. Do a good job. There's a rubric. If you're doing the bare minimum, you're not going to get a good grade. I want to give you a good grade. And I want you to actually benefit from the assignments, like benefit from them, put some effort into and thought into it. And even if you did, make sure I know you did. You got to communicate that. Okay. Okay. So body image. This is one of my favorite freaking topics. Does anybody here know what body image is? I've kind of picked at it a little bit with you already, but anybody know what it is?
How we see ourselves.
Yes, how we see ourselves. Be more specific.
How we physically see ourselves.
Correct. It's a connection to your identity and your physical being. Your face, for example, is how people differentiate you from others, right? The differences, the minor little differences that create an identity. So it is a way that we form a sense of self in relation to our community. So which hierarchy of need is that? If you know, raise your hand. Which hierarchy of need is community-based? So one person knows it? Two people? What's the third hierarchy of need? Thank you. Belonging. Inclusion into a group, because survival with more people increases your likelihood of getting food, shelter, and those primary and secondary hierarchies of need. Body image is very specific about how you identify who you are in a different way or in a community way. So it can be very complicated, but body image is a survival mechanism, how we identify ourselves in our community. When your sense of survival is connected to positive or negative perceptions about your body. So this is key here because it has a lot to do with identity and value. Every single person has a sense of body image. It's just a matter of if you use it to identify your worth in a positive or negative way. And it can also be in a neutral way, right? But it is a way that you sense that you fit in. This is a third hierarchy of need connected to how your body can either hinder or help your sense of connection to others. I want you to think about your own experience with this, how your body and how it was perceived might have benefited you or might have hindered relationships. So this is really important here. See, this is really a neat thing. I need you to start paying attention to this conversation. So when your brain sees repetition, it likes it. It likes repetition because in repetition is safety. Even if you're seeing repeated bad things, what you're learning is that is a bad thing, right? And you're learning, what does that bad thing look like, smell like? What is the bad thing? Right? So anytime there's repetition, your brain is naturally taking in information. And the more repeated you see, there is a sense of safety in that repetition. So imagine you're driving new in this map. The first time you go somewhere, you've never been there, you don't know anywhere, you don't know where you're going. How does it feel? Right? But then when you start to see familiarity, the stress can go down. Like I do not like being lost. And this has a lot to do with that part of the brain wants familiarity. How many of you were new to Boise when you came here to go to college? And how do you remember that feeling of being like, but now you're totally comfortable with it. Now you really enjoy it. Now there's pleasure. When you go home, you're like, oh my God, I miss some, this and that. You start to get pleasure from getting to know the space, getting to know where you need to look around corners, right? That's how this brain works. So body image is the same. The more you see repeated ways of dressing, looking, and being, the brain starts to stimulate pleasure. So for example, you see people who are mocked for what they're wearing or the way they look, you're going to feel safe in the fact that you don't look that way. You will feel pleasure in knowing I don't look like them. That is that narcissistic nature of survival, thinking that they're worthy of stigma and scorn because of the way they look. And I'm not looking that way. So there is this degree of pleasure involved. So fitting in is one of the ways you need to think of body image, how we try to fit in to our community. It's a message, right? It's a message. Now, when someone doesn't have a sense of themselves, their true self, remember true self, community self, false self, or fake self, or superficial self. When someone does not have a very clear and accepted sense of reality within their true self, they will become far more attached and identified by community self. how you dress in your religion, politics. So you will become far more physically identified by your community self, and it will feel pleasurable. And again, if you have that we're superior narcissistic self, you're going to want to separate yourself from other ways of dressing, right? So body image is kind of a big deal, right? Because we all want to feel includable, but what if your family is raised in an environment where people are mocked because of how they dress? People are mocked because they're wearing a man bun. You know, you're going to mock someone to make yourself feel better because you're looking for pleasure, right? And knowing that we're different and I'm superior. So let's make you superior. That is a clear sign that someone is inadequately insecure with their third hierarchy of need, right? When you start making fun of people's clothing or looks, because you're trying to make your community feel stronger. So in terms of fitting in, you either do not want to stick out, right? Because that's a difference. It's easier to be told how to dress and how to look because that feels safe. You also want to blend in to be unnoticed. So you don't want to stick out negatively. You want to just blend in and not be seen. I just think of traveling. If you go to another country, a foreign country where they clearly have different ideals around body image, and you don't look a part of that, you're going to stick out. And that's not going to feel good to your natural self, right? You don't have to have body image issues to have that feeling of, oh shit, I am sticking out. You're going to want to blend in. You're going to want to buy the clothes and not stick out. That's normal. Wanting to stick out in a positive way. So this is that idea of supremacy, or my survival in belonging comes from being superior to others. So this is where people want to look different. They want to buy the nicest things and make sure you can see the brands. They want to drive the nicest car. They're constantly comparing, do you wear the right shoes? Do you have the right purse? Do you have the right watch? Are you the right religion? Do you wear the right religious attire? If you don't, you're in trouble, right? Sticking out in a positive way. Wanting to stick out in a way that sends a message about a group you're affiliated with. Very similar, right? So I'm going to wear clothes and you're going to know what my beliefs are, right? So blending in, the goal is to not stand out as different, especially if different equates to being seen as bad or inferior. So we all have on some level experienced this, right? Where, well, think of it this way. How many of you have coordinated the way you look with your friends? We all have done that to some degree. Or this is fashion, right? The fashion industry is huge around this. What is the right look? What are we supposed to be wearing today? What's the right colors? Hair, makeup. There is no problem with this type of creativity and expression. The difference is when you're saying that being different is a bad thing. Again, that comes back to that narcissistic, I'm superior to you type of survival. So the issue may be like when you're thinking of, let's say, negative body image, that is my body does not match what is seen as superior. Therefore, I am at risk of judgment. I'm at risk of criticism or risk of being seen as inadequate. How many of you have felt that way? Right. So this is really an important part of survival, but it can create a huge amount of problems, like anxiety, worry, comparison. So again, the more you see repeated images, especially consistent pictures associated with safety, familiarity stimulates the pleasure center of the brain, making the repeated view attractive. This is an example of, for example, skinny jeans versus bell-bottom jeans. High waist versus low waist. How, oh my God, I just think that's attractive. how many times I've worked with people with eating disorders that I just like the way it looks to be thinner. What are they saying? They like the way it feels to be safe. Because that's what's they're connecting pleasure to, is the fact that if I'm thinner, I'm more attractive. I'm more likely to find a mate. I'm more likely to be given status, right? I just like the way it feels when I don't have fat on my sides, or I don't have this, I'm really embarrassed in my arms, right? What are they really embarrassed of? Is it really the arm they're embarrassed of? Or is it the stigma around having fat on your arms as a female and a male? Is the belief that you're unworthy of love and acceptance because of a body image, right? So in order for you to have a body image specific to inclusion, it requires you have a visual of what is seen as ideal. You cannot feel bad about your body without some ideal that you are comparing your body to. It's impossible. You don't just feel bad. You have to have something that you're worshiping as safe and ideal. From there, you compare your body to the ideal, and the difference is what creates discontent. That is essentially the definition of negative body image. You have an ideal that is symbolic of inclusion and belonging. You compare your body to that ideal. It is not the same. Therefore, you are at risk for exclusion, criticism, abandonment, rejection, living in the wilderness, dying alone, right? That's really what it's about. And you don't like your body. Now your body becomes your enemy. This can happen. I don't have enough muscles. I'm too thin. I'm not tall enough. My hair's falling out. I have early hair loss. I'll be seen as ugly. I'm not worthy of love and companionship. Can you see how this is directly related to that third hierarchy of need? And that third hierarchy of need, remember, if you have a strong sense of worth that comes from your true self, this is less likely to get triggered, because you'll know that your value, you're not bringing to the table a full head of hair. That's not what your gift is to humanity. Having nice abs, what is that doing for anybody? Is that really providing to your community? Look at my abs. I'm so hot. Does fucking nothing. It does nothing, right? But what you bring to community is kindness. You bring into community that you're easy to work with. You're resilient, right? That you are fun. You can take any situation and make it fun. Wouldn't you rather hang out with someone like that than someone that's just concerned about being good looking, self-centered, narcissistic, trying to be superior, feeling bad about themselves because their hair doesn't look right today? That is like a leech of energy versus someone who is more aware of themselves, more, maybe a little more humble about their view, the way they look and how they present themselves to humanity. This is hard to hear, right? But these are real facts around how body image works. So as we move into health and fitness around the body and nutrition, you got to make sure that you're not attaching nutrition to a body image, because that's where things get really wonky. That you're not attaching your worth to some ideal image of the body, because that's where mental health gets worse, right? And then you're clouded around how you should exercise, how you should be eating. You become less lenient, more rigid, right? But it requires you have an internalized ideal. Internalization means you heard it from some authority that you thought was legitimate and credible, and you said it's true. So therefore, it becomes part of your reality, right? These are those beliefs that we filter reality with, that we end up having problems that usually create distortions. So symbols of inclusion can be based on looks. So it's not just looks though, but that's probably the most obvious body image, based on how you look, your figure, your skin color, the way you dress, right? How we differentiate races. Also physical functions. So body image also includes, am I fit? Is fitness how you provide worth to humanity? Is that what you're bringing to your community? Am I an athlete? Do I have a skill set? Right? That can also be connected to body image or inclusion that we want to disconnect. It can be sex and sexuality. How many of you have said, are like pumping each other up because you had more sex? How many people use how many times they've had sex to boast themselves or to show I'm cool or I have value? Or that I'm more sexually attractive, right? Who's more sexually attractive, right? You can see two sides here. What's your sexuality? Like that actually makes you more valuable than someone else's sexuality or less valuable. Can you see how these are connected to that third hierarchy of need, belonging? And if you don't feel like you belong, you might be overcompensating with body image. There was a recent research, it was huge, actually. It was a review that was looking at the connection between someone leaving religious community, the religious community, and that in response that they shifted into more body image because it gave them a sense of autonomy rather than being controlled by a belief set. But when they left the belief or community control, they wanted the same control with their bodies. So there was an increase in disordered eating coming out of it, especially around health concepts, that they were going to try to control their sense of worth by controlling their body because it's more autonomous. Can you see that's a transfer from being insecure and needing this community to feel belonging to insecure and needing my body to make me feel worthy of belonging? And it's not consciously done. I did that. That's exactly what I did. I went from shame, not being in a failing this community from their super high standards that I couldn't match, to I'm going to try to control my body. And what you're trying to control is your sense of belonging, your sense of feeling worthy. So if I look better, if I can control my fitness, if I can eat cleaner or eat more pure and religious, then I'll feel better about myself. So body image, again, is a way that oftentimes we compensate for a lack of sense of worth within our true self. We can also get connected to concepts of disease and health. This is why we stigmatize people who might have like AIDS or a different type of physical ailment. We see someone that's disabled and maybe think that they're a quarter of a body because they lost their legs, right? You're not consciously saying or doing that, but that's oftentimes what happens. Someone has a physical limitation, you just assume they might be spiritually or ungifted. They have a lack of talent now, therefore they're not worth it to the community, right? So we're going to move on to the pictures because this is going to go fast. So these are just examples of community. This is religious dress, right? Again, there's nothing wrong with us. This is a way to find a sense of community and to use clothing. So, and I'm sure you could put tons more on there of different types of dress codes and symbolisms. A lot of times you can use like a necklace as a reminder of your connection to your community, connection to your God, higher power. These are not bad things. It's just part of how we are as humans, especially with image. We're highly eyeball oriented, kind of like dogs are sinus, bears are sinus, right? So take away your eyeballs and this starts to lose importance, but it's part of our nature. Politics, pretty obvious, right? How we communicate. Again, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. You want to be part of a community, you're going to try to dress and maybe show your beliefs, be a little overt about it. So this is goth, right? Again, I try to put some different predictable ways of communicating on here. You could use so many different, right? Being in cowboys or ranchers or being more of a mountain person. Mountain bikes, for example. I've noticed that people who mountain bike like to wear, like, what is it? You're wearing your plaid shirts. I mean, whatever, no big deal. I played volleyball, I wore volleyball clothes. There's definite fashion to it. And this is international, right? How to differentiate yourself. Fitness gear. Everybody's wearing Hokas right now. They're very comfortable, I know. So we're going to go back in ancient history. So this is not new. We've been doing this a long time. So see this skull? They thought that longer heads meant more intelligence and spirituality. So when babies were born, they immediately tried to squish the brains and the skulls and change the shape of the skull because this was seen as superior. This was seen as more spiritual, right? Visible ideas of inclusion. So keep thinking that. It went for a long time, even headdresses. In the Egyptian time, they would shave their heads because there was a lot of pestilence, lice. And so the way they differentiated the slaves, labor, and the hierarchies of wealth was through different wigs. And this has been done over and over at different times. Different times, like for example, for women especially, plucking your forehead, having a longer forehead was again seen as affluence, rich, intelligence. They would also pluck the eyebrows and eyelashes because those were seen as too sexually attractive for men. So if you had eyebrows and eyelashes and someone raped you, it's your fault. You did not pluck your eyebrows and eyelashes. You are sinful and disgusting. So someone with eyelashes back then would have been seen as a whore. Worthless, right? Again, look at belonging. Worthy of exclusion, and it's changed. And then for a while at different cultures, it was thick. They liked the unibrows. They would color in the thickness of the brows. And facial hair. We've done it again, right? It goes back and forth around how much hair you have, how little hair you have. Are you sexually attractive? That's body image, right? Are you worthy of a partner? Maybe you should get eyelash extensions. Maybe you should thicken your eyebrows. Let's put some filler in your lips. Tons of filler. And maybe that will make you belong. They've done it with neck rings, specifically for women. The more rings that a woman could have, the more she was seen as hardworking, intelligent. She had pain tolerance, work ethic. She wanted it enough. She was willing. Sound familiar to thin supremacy? Clothing, adornments, all of these things have symbolic meanings. You can see her forehead has been pulled back. Also, they used to put white makeup on because if you were rich, you didn't have a tan. You were indoors, you had slaves, you had labor. So they would actually color, try to make their veins look more blue because that meant that you were richer and more valuable, right? Kind of like if I put more filler and make my face look more filled up, I can prove that I have affluence because I can afford, a face procedure. I see this all the time. I think this is Japanese. See how her teeth are black? That's a visible sign that she is married. Right? These are all visible signs that I am pure, that have been passed down for thousands of years. Hair, once again, had different meanings and symbols of class. Look at the fingernails. This man is from China. And so for thousands of years, the length of your nails was also seen as a value because if you worked and labored, you would have shorter nails. So the longer your nails were, you were seen as intelligent, non-working, super smart. You were just given tons of credit. You must be rich. You know what you're doing because you're rich. Look at his nails. So you would just be given value based on these symbols of value or worth based on something like super long nails. Foot binding was something that occurred for a few thousand years. I think over 1,000 years, 1,000. And it was seen that women who had smaller feet were more intelligent, could handle pain tolerance, had self-discipline, could handle it. They were had more affluence because they had the proper wraps, right? And it was seen as now attractive. See what I mean by that? Hedonic pleasure center of the brain starts to look at things like more attractive. So this was sexually attractive by men. So when women see repeated images of sexual attractiveness, you're going to probably go, wow, this is hot shit right there. That's what happened to their brains. Over 1,000 years, you would take your baby girls and think, I need to make sure their feet are between 3 and 5 inches. If it's above 5 inches, she's worthless, unattractive, seen as lazy, no discipline, doesn't want it enough, right? Imagine the economy around this too. Little shoes. See these cute little shoes? Actually kind of cute. Imagine the economy around the proper wraps, different techniques that you could be selling, just like diets. Do it. Starve yourself this way, it's healthier, is it? Hair, men's and mustaches, again, they all have different, can be used to communicate different things. Again, more so for people who might have body image issues, but even if you don't, these are forms of expression and self-identity. For a very long time, body fat was seen as beautiful because it was equated to wealth, which meant access to food, water, shelter. So again, wealth tends to be confused with belonging because you're more likely to have resources, right? So a lot of men, men and women, you'll see an older man with a super younger woman, and you know that she's there for the wealth, right? Chances are she's not there for the D at 95. He's 95. You know what I mean? So it's body fat, again, comes to the same thing. Wealth. You have money. You don't have to labor, right? So for most of the time, body fat has been associated with health and wealth because these people survived a lot more. They didn't starve to death. They didn't have the same immune issues. They survived. You were more likely to survive 100 years ago looking like this than looking like this. They didn't have, again, or 200 years ago, they didn't have antibiotics. They didn't have vaccinations. And if you got ill and couldn't eat, you're more likely to survive. Plus, because of that wealth, imagine that they were maybe immune to having so much death around them. So you were thinner, you were seen as poor, not as attractive, more likely to have disease and mental health problems. And then that changed. So at the turn of the century, I don't know how many of you read the body image one that I posted last about shame and body image. There's a history behind where we're at today as we've become more affluent. So we're going to go quickly through this. It changed because as more food became abundant at the turn of the century, the 1900s, 1900s, because of the farming and the trail systems and the availability to make mass amounts of food. And so the wealthy who used to be able to differentiate themselves as superior by having more body fat didn't no longer visibly, you couldn't really tell the difference because people who were less affluent could afford more food. They weren't as sick because of vaccinations and healthcare. And so they didn't like that. The narcissistic affluence didn't like that. And so in the early 1900s, there was a massive shift to being thinner as not just healthier. It's the same thing. It just shifted to, we need you to be thinner. Don't be too fat. So you can see here in the 1920s, wash away your fat with this reducing soap. Just hear me out. That's an authority. You can wash your fat away. Now, if you believe the authority was true and you use that soap and you didn't lose like this, who was at fault? Who is at fault? If the authority knows and you don't lose fat using this soap, who's at fault? Yes, people think I must suck. There's something wrong with me. Not this. This is terrible. You all can see that, right? So we're going to keep on going. The corsets that happened turn of the century, they're back too. Again, the more you see it, the more you're attracted to it because that brain likes repetition. Electric corsets, just to really help you out, motivate you a little bit. You want a little like electricity? Here we are, Kardashians selling their corsets, making money off it. Look at this, tapeworms. Friends, for your fair form, let's give you tapeworms. Oh, for real. So if this didn't work, who's the bad person? The people that tried it and it didn't work for, because this is an authority, right? So no one questions the dogmatic authority. And not only that, but you can eat all you want, right? So that's really, we're going to go more into how this impacts our relationship with food, but not today. I got to keep on going. Again, live tapeworms. This is a lot later than this one. Still selling it, right? Victorian, maybe 1920s, 1920s. This is 1940s. Still selling tapeworm. So this is another one advertisement around, you know, the stigma of fat people. Lose 3 to 5 pounds a week by a physician. And again, so if you didn't lose 3 to 5 pounds a week, who's at fault? You must suck, not this advertisement. And you can drink your fat away. Ugly fat melts away. Notice how they use the word ugly. So can you see where this is now not about function, feeling, has nothing to do with anything but you're ugly. So what hierarchy of need are they doing? And is this a supremacy belief? Supremacy, right? That narcissistic view of what makes you disgusting and unattractive. Isn't that what ugly is? Worthy of rejection, being discarded. So notice the language of these advertisements. How about rubber garments, you guys? Reduce your flesh. Endorsed by medical authorities. So you're getting some sense like, oh my God, these are people who know what they're talking about. No one loves a fat girl. Buy the rye crisps. So can you see the shaming and that no one loves you? You're not going to belong. So again, threatening the third hierarchy of need. If you believe this, you're going to have anxiety. You're going to have problems. You're going to have poor body image. Be fit and slim. Now this one's taking bile beans. This is a diuretic. So they're suggesting you actually just give yourself diarrhea. And you'll kind of see too, again, the advertisements. She takes her bio beans every day. If you read Bright Eyes, Radiant Health. So amazing. Again, bio beans, they went for it. They were not, you're going to be a patriot. Patriotic, taking your diuretic to make sure you stay thin, women, so you're attractive and not ugly. Health, figure, and charm. So if you take the bio beans, you're going to be a lot happier. You're going to be a lot happier. Now, it changed after World War II. It changed. There's a reason why. After World War II, things changed. It's because there was, or the Depression occurred. So a real depression occurred. So the luxury of being able to be thinner, again, was for everybody to be thinner. So the affluent couldn't differentiate themselves. If everybody's thinner, because everybody's freaking starving at this point with the depression. So having more fat became attractive again. So bam, bam, flip the advertisements. Do you see this one right here? Let's beat it. Here comes that skinny dame. Men hate the side of me. There you go. Rejection, abandonment, disapproval. You're not going to belong. You're gorgeous since you've gained weight. Do you see how the value of a person is she's giving value and belonging based on an aesthetic, sexual attractiveness. Men wouldn't look at me and we're skinny. There's so many of these, you guys. Your grandparents were raised with some of these things. Whiplash, thousands of skinny girls gain 10 to 20 pounds quick. Again, don't let them call you skinny. And this is says for men too. So and I will show an advertisement here in a second that is them men being shamed for being skinny. How do you look in this bathing suit? Who freaking gives a shit, right? But you know what? If you don't feel good about yourself, this matters. This matters. It's just very sad. If you don't have a sense of self, true self, you're prone to believe these things. And trust me, we're going to get into today. Again, wait on as if you are unworthy. There is no value to this woman. She has nothing to give, but you know what? This body is providing to all of our humanity. It does nothing besides objectify. You are not really anything but a body. Again, curve. So this one, skinny men are not attractive either. I wouldn't be seen with that scarecrow. So if you believe this, you're going to feel this. This is still happening, period, to men today. This is still happening. It is very pervasive, but trust me, if you're not tall enough, skinny, it's a real thing. And notice the men's faces on this. Notice the male onlookers giving you attraction, right? This is like, wow, you belong, you're superior. Look at you, you have a beach body. And the male being degraded publicly. That's social stigma that we learned a few weeks ago. And then it changes. Men are supposed to be brawny. You're a man if you got those muscles. This is still happening today. Yes, girls laugh at you when you take your shirt off, like mocking and stigma and discarding you. And it's a real thing. Still happening today. Still happening. Nobody is naturally skinny. So this is where you need to think about the authority. Is that true? Nobody is naturally skinny. Is that true? It's not true, right? But if you believe the authority and you internalize that that's true, then the illusion is it's a choice that you're thinner as a man. It's a choice that you don't have muscles. You could choose to be different. You talk to anybody who weightlifts, who's taking gainers, how hard it is to gain muscle. It takes obsession to some degree to get big enough. It takes like a full-time job. But yet, if you don't do that, you're a piece of shit. So this is actually taking someone's state of awareness, saying you'll be safer if you can fixate on your body and make it look different. You'll be safer as a human, more valuable. Now we go back into losing weight. So in the 1940s, after World War II, insurance companies, life insurance became a big deal. People had died in the war, life insurance, let's promote life insurance. And so they hired a statistician, a life insurance company, hired a statistician to determine how can we easily and quickly determine someone's health status. Anybody know what was created out of that? Yes, height and weight chart, because you could just take someone's height and their weight and determine health risk. Prior to that, and then they put a ton of money into marketing it. Go to your doctor, see if you're prone to disease, if you're at risk for heart disease, diabetes, all the things. So at that moment, prior to this, people were of all different sizes and it wasn't really connected to disease. Now, remember stigma, a visible mark of disease. Primal, I mean, that's ancient stuff, right? If you can see that someone might have a disease, you're going to want to get away, right? So the height and weight chart was created for a simple, go see your doctor, see what your disease rate is. So a doctor could just take your height and weight and be like, here's what you're at risk for. But they didn't really talk about anything else. There was no physiology involved. There was no science involved outside of statistics or probabilities. And so it became household idea to lose weight for health. And this is when the fitness industry was born. Before this, really, fitness was about war and preparing for war. It was usually reserved for men. Then it became a household conversation, a curiosity. And so weight loss became a topic, and it became overweight became a word. Prior to that, it wasn't really a word. You know, overweight compared to obese, and those differentiate. So someone would come in. So I'm considered overweight based on the original height and weight. They've changed it. They changed it again, I think, in the 1960s, but I'm still on the edge of being overweight. Just so y'all know, I'm 155 to 160 pounds. So if I believed them, if I wasn't educated, I would be on a diet. And how well do you think that diet's going to go? Probably not so well. I'm going to start emotionally eating and binge eating because that's the consequence. And then who is in trouble if it didn't work for me? Me, right? No one thinks this is a bunch of bullshit. Today, we know that 97% of people that lose weight through diet methods, doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter if you think it's healthy, gain it back. So probability of any of these working is 3% or less. And the 3% it typically works for end up having some degree of obsession about maintaining that weight. So they're not necessarily mentally or emotionally healthy. So you can reduce through listening. Listen. So we're going to smoke cigarettes now to lose weight. These are real, by the way. This is real. This is what, 1960s? You're going to be super healthy. Here we are smoking again. I'm thinner. All for health. And don't forget the body image, right? Because you're supposed to be sexually attractive as a woman. If you're not, then you're worthless. Then we're going to give them sugar, right? Have some sugar. Sugar is part of my diet for energy boost. Use amphetamines, right? And let's get our daughters on board with this whole thin supremacy. Let's make sure that they keep their waist cinched and they're going to be on a diet too. Keep on going so you can see. Look at this face. Oh, I'm so jealous. Does she look like she needs to lose weight? I mean, you can't tell, but she clearly thinks she's worthless in comparison. I'm inferior. Boys wouldn't look at me. So your value as a woman in attraction, that's a replay. So it changed again. So in the 1960s, 70s, it became far more about emaciation is pretty. This is Twiggy. I can't remember her name. This was when I was in high school. This was sexy. I am not kidding you. So the more kind of frail, and I'm not saying she isn't, because I don't care, but this was created as the norm. If you don't look this way, you're not worthy of inclusion. And then we had fitness magazines come out and promote the same shit. Losing 60 pounds without diet or exercise or going crazy. Okay, here it is. This is the, I think, early 2000s. See her stomach? We're just going to focus on the stomach now. So we're going to use body parts instead of the whole person. We're going to fixate on a body part. So it becomes less and less human and more fixation on magnifying body parts. The Kardashians do that with their lips, what they've done. Men, same shit. So we're going to get into men. So you can see they don't even infer why. Why would you want to look like this? They've stopped even telling you why. Because it's an assumed, internalized need to belong. They don't even tell you why anymore. Remember in the beginning, they would say, let's demonstrate why you needed to do this. Because no woman's going to want a skinny boy. They don't even tell you why. Here it is again. This time you're going to be super like successful and hot. And then let's look at this. Which one do you think is going to help him look like this? which muscle should he just stimulate to make him that big and ripped? So if you don't look this way, so they're taking advantage of people feeling insecure, feeling unlovable, thinking that maybe if I do this stem work on this bicep, it's going to get fucking yoked, ripped. I think this is really more matching someone in fight or flight. At least that's the feeling I get with this, the fight mode, beast mode. This is hard work. Like this is hard work. This is, I know this is part of this, but the more you see it, the more you think it is the norm. Your brain sees it. More and more you see it, the more the pleasure center of the brain stimulates attraction, pleasure. Right? There's something wrong with this, but then he looks like this. How do we fix, how do you become better? You can kind of see the same message. This is a little leaner, right? Same. They don't even tell you why, it is just inferred. She's happy. She's more worthy. You should be the same. So makeup again, lip fillers again. Can you see nothing's changed? Thousands of years. It's revolved over and over again. This is how you get inclusion. This is how you're going to visibly show that you have value to your community. Let's look at all the areas that I should be focusing on. They're telling you where to focus, right? So you could go back to these and say, what should we be focusing on? Pecs, abs. Look at its freaking traps. These are kind of amazing as adults. Biceps, what you should be looking at. What should we be looking at? Her abs, her arms, eyelashes, how big the lips can be, all the things. Brazilian butt lift. This is kind of a cool thing, right? Who can have, this is actually, I took from a surgical site. This is a Brazilian butt lift. It always looks weird because the hamstrings and adductors don't match, right? But that doesn't matter because this is a sign of sexual value. And the more you see it, the more you're gonna go, oh my God, my butt isn't big enough. That's how it works. You compare yourself to what you think is the ideal that you've internalized. You feel bad about yourself. Negative body image. So now, there's the men's is after this. How we feel about our bodies. So look through this list and apply it to yourself. When you're looking at images of bodies, again, over and over and over and over and over and over again, the more you see them, the more the brain associates pleasure to the images. You don't even have to think that they're ideal. You just see it over and over again, and the brain starts to say, oh, that's attractive, that's attractive, that's attractive. So no wonder social media, right? Because we can scroll, bam, 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 and you see it, and you see it, and you see it. TVs, movies, what other people's opinions are. This right here, myself, is really about being internalized. This is like brainwashing. The only way that you would feel bad about your body is if you're comparing it to an ideal that you've internalized. So is it you that feels bad about your body, or is it the ideal belief that you've internalized that feels bad about your body, right? You got to be able to differentiate those two. Men, significant other, then social media. Very different, right? But yes. I mean, we're a significant other. Third down. First. What do you guys think about this? Does it fall in line with kind of your own experience? Would you say this is about right? Social media still, because of how often you see those pictures. There is research to show. So this is key. This is important. You're going to remember from this conversation. People who recognize that that's what that is, that that's body image, that's that third hierarchy. They might not know those words, but this is like a societal ideal of belonging. The more you know that's what that is, the less likely you're influenced. The more you're like, these ideals are based on this beliefs way that people get to be seen as valuable, if you can see that that's what that is, you're less likely to buy into it so hard. You're less likely to internalize it as part of your value or lack of value. That's really important. So I can live in the fitness industry and see all those things and all those ads. And to me, it's like, oh, whoo, fight or flight, survival mode. Someone doesn't feel good about themselves, but they want to feel good about the way they're perceived. I can understand it, right? I'm less likely to think that way because I understand how it functions, why it's that way. Again, I didn't show you any of the food mongering from the nutrition industry, the diet industry. Never showed you any of those. How much you're going to die and how much disease you're going to have if you don't follow their belief system, and how horrible you are if you don't eat this certain way. So this is how body image works. So the images, this is taped on from magazines, the images that you see become how you value or devalue yourself physically, how you look. So this looks weird, but that's essentially what's happening. Negative body image, when your body doesn't match an ideal image, you have the image internalized, you compare your body to it, it doesn't match, negative. I feel bad, I'm embarrassed, I don't want to go out. Positive body image. I'm proud of my body. I'm finally in a good place, and I learned to love me for me and not somebody else's standards. Now, I'm not bagging on the Kardashians. They're good people, but they obviously have body image stigma and a ton of issues. This is a great example of what positive body image is. That means, and she's clearly internalized these images herself. You can just see it. When you feel better about yourself because your body matches the idealistic image, that's positive body image. Still body image. I feel better about myself when I look the way that I've been imaging everything around me. So that's positive body image, right? I am still dependent on my body in a certain construct to meet certain standards to feel positive. So typical body, positive body image is I still am, I'm meeting a standard, therefore I'm positive about it. So on the edge of positive body image is negative body image, right? So I've had so many clients who never really thought they had a weight problem, and I put in quotes because it's made up, but they grew up without it until they gained weight after pregnancy, and then they felt ashamed about themselves. So they didn't really know that they had a body image issue until they felt shame about it. They were hiding in the safety of positive body image, still body image. This is a step. I don't recommend it because this is that inflated state. This is pride. This is the desire. If we remember the states of consciousness that I've gone over, this is higher than loathing and apathy and worthlessness. You're getting into desire. I want to look better. I want to assimilate. I can do it. There's a little more confidence, but this is definitely attached to self-esteem and not competence, which is internal. So positive body image is when you are assimilating and you're doing a good job doing what you're told. Positive body image is still limiting because it emphasizes worth based on body, still, like being attractive. Are you beautiful enough? So another push is the body positive, which I love, I do, but it's still saying my worth is that I'm beautiful. All bodies are beautiful. So beauty is your worth. So there is a more, I would say more effective movement, which is body neutrality, which we'll get into. So confidence. Do Americans become more or less confident about their bodies over time? So let's look at women's over time, less confident. So this has a lot to do with positive or negative body image. You're still either conforming, either way. You fit it or you don't. So if you don't fit it, you're not confident. If you fit it, you're more confident in your body. Anybody have any questions about that? Because this can be like, whoa, hold on a second. When I work with clients, I don't recommend positive body image. I recommend not having one. You assimilate but don't attach your worth to your body, period. It's not what you give to humanity. Separate it. So body confidence. So if someone is in a wheelchair and can't walk, should they not be confident in their body? Because they don't look like this or function like that? Are they not attractive? Right? You should just be confident that your body works without you needing to know. So here is the difference between I love this. So I stole it from Goal Mental State. I feel good because of the conditions of beauty. So this is the downside of self-esteem versus self-worth, which is I feel good about myself. How I feel good about myself has nothing to do with my appearance. Can you feel there's a separation between the two? This person's sense of belonging is secure. This person's sense of belonging is based on conditions. So it's temporary or conditional security. Not connected to it, insecure. So this one's going to have fight or flight problems, distortions. This one probably isn't about their body. This is really important moving forward in our topics of fitness and health and nutrition and all the things, because the goal is that you're here. You're more likely to be consistent with exercise in this column, and you're more likely to be all or nothing in this column. This isn't just book knowledge. I've been training people for 25 years. I do not recommend this. This comes with a lot of baggage, a lot of conditions, and you're more likely to quit and feel bad about yourself. This person is more consistent. They're not as all or nothing. They're more forgiving, gracious, lenient, which means they do fitness activities longer than this person. It disconnects your worth from being attractive. This doesn't mean that you don't feel like you need to blend in, right? I put makeup on today. Does that affect my sense of worth? Does it change my effectiveness as a teacher? Probably not, right? It's not attached. So I can still assimilate, but I'm not in fight or flight. I think I've come in here without makeup before. Did it change anything? Didn't change my mood, didn't change shit. It was really a matter of, do I have time or not? I don't care. So when you are aware of these things, it becomes a choice. There's more choices involved in blending in and how intense you want to blend into your society, right? It becomes a choice, and that's ultimately what we want, the freedom. And the key here with body image ultimately is that how you relate to the body that your life is provided by. I'm going to say that again. The body that's providing you consciousness right now, because you're not doing it, it's doing it for you. Can you feel safe in it? Appreciate it. Because it's going to be it's providing you consciousness right now. So are we going to make these images decide that your body isn't worthy of consciousness? Are you not worthy of being here? Because of what some industry is trying to sell you is ideal? If you cannot appreciate your body and the life it's providing you, it's very hard to not be in survival mode, to not be in chronic anxiety about how you're perceived by others. The key is being safe in your body, which is what people are trying to do with body image. They just think safety comes from being the most superior thin person, being the most superior athlete, being the most fittest, eating the most insanely controlled food intake, which means you're really insecure and your body's probably really diseased. You shouldn't have to be super controlling over your body to be healthy. This kind of takes us back to the first day you were here, when I said, you're all healthy, every single one of you. To think you're not, you've been brainwashed. So this is the goal, is that you already feel safe, and the rest is intelligence. There's nothing wrong with your body, but there is a lot wrong with messages which try to convince you otherwise. And typically these messages are coming from industries that are making trillions of dollars, and they've been doing it for decades, centuries. Okay, homework. What are 2 common body images that are promoted by your family, your community, and in your culture? Again, nothing wrong with it, but I want you to start seeing it. Just being like, oh, wow, that's an actual like body image that I'm assimilating to, no judgment, but know what it is. You can I want you taking pictures or finding pictures online and post them. Okay. See you guys on Wednesday.
I was just looking, as you're talking about.
Yes, yes.
And I was looking at it. And when I was turning it in, I did it, so I didn't see it. And there's two comments that you didn't see the bottom of.
Yes.
But I have those, but I don't know why they didn't turn in.
Try it again, because you're not the only person.
Okay, because I thought I heard like.
Right.
Able to turn both in. With the comment.
Right, okay, right, and I saw yours too. Your
Yeah.
decatastrophizing.
Yeah, okay, because I already submitted it this morning, so I'm like, I think I must have submitted it somewhere else.
I don't know, there was a few people, I'm like, don't forget, I have to see this, like,
Oh, I already submitted it under the same thing today.
perfect. Thank you,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Go kick ass today.